Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Clair Obscur Expidition 33. Now we talked about this I think in yesterday's video where they announced they had 500,000 sales. Well, this game has just released on April 24th and they've just reported over 1 million sales of this game. Absolutely insane, and it's got a very positive review score over here on Steam. Now, I haven't had a chance to check out this turn-based RPG, but it does seem a lot of people have. If you've played it, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below, and if I should pick it up, and if others should as well. Next up, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 was released back in 2020, so 5 years ago. And this headline, I think, is being taken a little bit out of context. So this one's up over on Video Games Chronicle, and like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. Anyways, here, this is the title. It says, CD Projekt says switch to Cyberpunk 2077 improves on the troubled PS4 Xbox One version. And some people may forget that when Cyberpunk 2077 released, it was a little bit controversial. So without opening up that can of worms too much, just trying to set the stage here, it does seem that CD Projekt Red is utilizing technology that didn't exist in those consoles, like DLSS, to create a better experience. They say here they've been careful picking trade-offs to not compromise the game's vision. So if you've never played Cyberpunk 2077 before, the Switch 2 might be a good way to experience it if you're picking up a Switch 2. And they say here that this will be the first game to use DLSS on the Switch 2, and it uses it both in docked and handheld mode. But let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I think here, if you're not a fan of DLSS, you may not like the Switch 2 for certain games. And I'm assuming here that the Switch 2 is going to heavily utilize DLSS to make some huge games run very well on the system. I mean, think about it. You can run it at a way lower resolution, use DLSS to upscale it, and have it run or look a lot better. On a side note here, for even more context on the matter, it's being reported that Street Fighter 6 on the Switch 2 is running at 540p, and then utilizing DLSS to boost that up to 1080p. So I'd say on the pro side here, the game looks like it's running at 1080p 60 frames per second. On the con side, it's actually only running at 540p. So it's truly utilizing technology the PS4 and Xbox One didn't have. Now, in my opinion here, and I'm not knocking the Switch 2, I'm a little bit confused because looking at the specs, the raw specs of the Switch 2 compared with the PS4, it does seem that the Switch 2 is more powerful. But the Switch 2 is running the game at a lower resolution than the PS4, and it seems to be somewhat comparable with the PS4. I'm very confused here as to why they'd need to run the game at 540p and use DLSS to pump it up to 1080p, as opposed to just using the processing power the Switch offers. Let me know your thoughts about that one too, because I'm a little bit confused on the matter. But moving on from that can of worms, next up we're talking about the Game Boy and Outrun. And this to me looks super interesting and something that looks like it should be right at home on the system. So Shane McCafferty says, the Game Boy never got an Outrun, so I've started work on an Outrun thing for the Game Boy Color. And here's the first screenshot. I can't wait to see what they do next. For those who may not be aware, this developer is the same one behind Hero GP, which is a very cool fast-paced game that we've talked about in previous videos. Moving on, and we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation on a Nintendo Switch. I'm not joking with you here. So this appears to be a hacked Nintendo Switch and a modded Nintendo Switch running RPCS3 and running it surprisingly well. Now, unfortunately, I've looked around a little bit and haven't determined the full extent of the mods, everything that's been done to the Switch to get it to this point and how long it took. But it does seem that this Switch has been heavily customized. Either way, though, this is very impressive to me, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and let me know your thoughts on it. Next up, we're switching back to talking about the Switch 2, and this time about an accessory that a lot of people seem to be, or possibly will be interested in. So the whole camera accessory for the Switch 2 has got talked about quite a bit. And now Hori here has something practical, and I don't want to say innovative, but it kind of is. It makes a lot of sense. To me, this product is a no-brainer, and I think it's about $26 US. It's posted on Amazon Japan right now. I'm assuming it's going to be posted on Amazon US and Canada at some point in time. But anyways, here it's a camera that has a docking station, very similar to the Switch. So when the Switch is docked, you dock the camera. When the Switch is in portable mode, you just pull the camera out of the dock and plug it into the top of the Switch. Now the resolution on this one is only 480p, but I think this may be one of the more popular choices that people go with for the Switch 2. The Piranha Plant one we've talked about in previous videos offers some very similar technology, although I would say it's sitting on top of the Switch 2 maybe a little bit more clunky overall, or maybe it won't be because I think you can position the stem on this. Next up, we're talking about Far Cry, and possibly a pretty big win for game preservation. So someone picked up an old Xbox development kit, the OG Xbox, and they found a Far Cry development build within it, surprisingly. And everything seems to work except the audio. This is a development build and there is no audio, and they say the FPS does drop when looking at trees. But at the same time here, I find these pieces of history very interesting. Unfortunately, I don't know if this game is going to be dumped and preserved, but it does appear it may be based on the reaction here in the audience. So people are saying back it up and upload it, preserve it. And people here are also saying contact Modern Vintage Gamer. So MVG, if you are watching this, it seems that people are trying to get a hold of you. Next up, we're talking about ROMM or ROMM, or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, depending on how you wanted to pronounce that. Anyways, ROMM just got a brand new update here, and for those who may not be aware, it's a beautiful, powerful, self-hosted ROM manager. So at the time of filming, version 3.9.0 is the latest update, and this one has got better, faster, and stronger. So there are some bug fixes here, as well as some performance improvements, and a better UI to help easier navigate through things. And speaking about navigating things, next up we're talking about Retroid and navigating the whole tariff situation with the US. Retroid has issued an update here, and you may be interested in it if you are in the US. So Retroid says that 4PX has paused US shipments starting on April 23rd and no idea when they will resume. And DHL has paused shipments starting April 25th, and they will resume on April 27th. So we should know really soon whether or not they are resuming. And they're also securing a new shipping vendor. Now, if you are in the US, shipments will cost $20 more. But they say here it's important to note that the product prices will not increase during this time. They're also electing to pay the US tariff fees on behalf of the customer. I don't know here. Let me know your thoughts on this one, but it does seem that Retroid is trying to do what they can. They're getting creative and trying to keep product flowing into the US to keep customers happy. We'll have to wait and see in the long run here, but other companies may start doing something similar. Or maybe they'll just keep pausing things altogether until the whole tariff thing is over. All I know is that Retroid is at least actively trying to do something. Next up, we're talking about an upcoming piece of software I think a whole lot of people will be interested in, excited about, and find extremely useful. So this person says they are developing a Linux tool to simplify migrating an SD card with a raw EMU MMC partition to a larger one. The tool will automatically detect the EMU MMC size on the source SD card, copy the visible FAT32 partition, back up the data locally, and seamlessly transfer to the new SD card. Unfortunately, I don't know a release date just yet, but it appears that development is progressing very well. And people may find this interesting if they're going from a smaller microSD card to a larger one. For example, from the Switch to the Switch 2, and the Switch 2 needs an entirely different type of microSD card. You just can't plug and play it. And speaking about interesting things, hopefully the whole video is interesting. Anyways, here we're talking about GPUs and brand new tech that's being launched in them. This to me is pretty cool here. So it's being reported that Asus GeForce RTX 50 ROG Astral GPUs will feature a built-in gyroscope and accelerometer to detect GPU sag. So you plug it in and you won't have to worry. Well, you will have to worry about your GPU sagging on that motherboard, but now it'll let you know when it is. It's no secret that GPUs are getting bigger and heavier, and I would say that there's a lot of cases out there that do not adequately support these GPUs. Can you cram the GPU in there? Probably sure, but at the same time, they may not have adequate supports to prevent sagging on that motherboard and prevent damage overall, both to the card and to the motherboard. And I would say this is a really, really good feature, and one that may allow people to realize there may be some damaging happening before anything happens too bad. Let me know your thoughts about this one, but I think this is a very smart feature to have on GPUs. I mean, some GPUs weigh so much, and there's so much stress on those pins as those GPUs are suspended. And I think this will help people realize that they may need to support the GPU in multiple ways here to prevent damage to their motherboards and GPUs. especially if you move that case around at all. Moving on, and we're switching from hardware to software and talking about a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive emulator called ClownMDEmu. And ClownMDEmu just got a brand new update. Now, at the time of filming, version 1.3.0.1 is the latest update, and I would say this is a very big update in terms of overall performance and optimization. A lot of work went into this to make it run better with lower-end hardware. If you are curious about this one, the developer has an awesome write-up over on their website, and I do recommend giving it a read. There's a lot of detailed information in there if you're into Sega Genesis emulation. On top of that, there's now Arch64 app image builds if you are on Linux. Based on what I'm seeing here, the developer has no intentions of slowing down. In fact, quite the opposite. They're looking at speeding things up. And I can't wait to see what ClownMDEmu does next. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.